it has been a minute since I made a video like this. You see, with the launch of a new season, generally speaking, I dive into the patch notes or the battle pass, but I've been doing that over on Ink TV, where I kind of cover more broad gaming news and things like that. Whereas on this channel, we dive into the story, the history of Call of Duty. And it just so happens with Season 3, they have added 4 characters, 4 operators that all have direct tie-ins to the history and story of Call of Duty. We have Jason Hudson, who is an iconic character within the Black Ops universe, going all the way back into Black Ops 1. On top of that, we have Roze, one of the most played operators out of any Call of Duty game because of, well, one reason or another, which we'll get into. Then we also have Mace, a character who actually has direct tie-ins to none other than Simon Ghost Riley's backstory, with a much deeper and entrenched story into the overall COD and lore than you may realize. And then we have Johnny Black Ops, a character who might not only be tied to the Black Ops universe, but I think there might be a little bit more to him than meets the eye. Now, in this video, I'm going to be going over just little tidbits of their backstory, giving you a brief bit of their lore and background, where they came from. But if there's any of these characters you'd like to see me dive into, maybe in a future video, show me by hitting that like button and letting me know which characters down in the comments. But where should we start out here? Well, since Verdansk is coming back, let's start with one of those. So I was originally going to start with Roze. However, to understand Roze's story, you first have to understand Mace's story. So Mace first joined the Call of Duty crew on February 25th, 2020. Now, this was before the launch of Call of Duty Warzone, but this was his backstory. Mace began his military career as a Special Forces Army Ranger. At some point prior to October 2019, he used to serve with Simon Ghost Riley in the same unit. That's when he started to sport the skull mask similar to Ghost, albeit using a more metallic face rather than the cloth one that Ghost used. Now, how this came to be was never explained, but I do think there's more of a reason to it, which we could dive into in a separate video. Now, shortly after this, Mace left the military to join Shadow Company, specifically through someone by the name of Philip Graves, following multiple deployments and operations where he became known for his brutal and brash tactics. Mace decided to leave Shadow Company and return to Africa, where he joined Zane and the Jackals. They were fighting Al-Qatala in the Pan-African region. So he honed in his skills in South Africa, at which time he also recruited Roze. But we'll come back to that one. So during this time, that is when everything started to shift towards Verdansk, when Viktor Zakhaev's efforts would get pushed in that direction, and therefore the Jackals, alongside the Coalition, joined Armistice and all started to fight in Verdansk. So that is the story up until the battle in Verdansk, in other words, around Season 5 of Modern Warfare 2019, but his story continued after that. Later on in the year 2023, Mace would go back to Africa. However, Coney Group, in other words, the people who were run by Vladimir Makarov, started to attack. This is when Philip Graves extends his hand once again, and he actually ended up rejoining Shadow Company. Now, Roze's story might not actually be what you imagine. You see, her story goes like this. First of all, her full name is Rosalind Helms, or Roze for short. She was actually added in Season 4 with her own operator bundle, but later was added in separately in Season 5, which we'll get to in a second. Speaking of being added in separately, when we go to Black Ops 6, what we can see is in Black Cell, this is known as RO-Z3. So technically, some sort of cyborg version of Roze, which is very, very strange. But now going back to the actual character, which is Rosalind. She grew up in Colorado in the mountains. Rosalind became one of the first women ever to graduate Army Ranger School. Proficient in small unit tactics and close combat engagements, Rosalind found her profession, or so she thought, in the U.S. Army Rangers. However, when her father got sick, she needed to support her ailing father. However, also needing to support her family, she was still in contact with her friend Mace, who was also in the Rangers, who was at that point working in the Jackals. So she was pulled into the Jackals. However, in 2020, Rosalind received an offer from Commander Philip Graves to join Shadow Company. This was simple. She needed help in Verdansk, and that is where Roze came in.
You ready to start this fire?
Always. You know that.
That's what I like to hear. How about some fireworks?
Wait till you hear this.
Now, she remained on cordial terms with Mace, but also getting an influx of money from Philip Graves, therefore being able to support her ailing father further. So yeah, she was the one that blew the roof off the stadium, and then later in 2022, she actually severed ties with Shadow Company to join Cortex. So that is one side of the story, the modern warfare side of the story, if you will, which kind of started in the year 2019 and pushed forward after that. Now we need to go back in time. So the next character that we have is Jason Hudson. Now I want to be clear, I could probably do about a 30-minute video on Jason Hudson with all of his backstory because there's a lot hidden on Jason Hudson. However, I'm going to just go over the major things here. First of all, in Black Ops 1, he is introduced as the handler for the main character, Alex Mason. By the very end of the game, we find out that the one who's been interrogating Alex Mason the whole time to try to get the numbers sequence out of his head is none other than Jason Hudson. Now, you fast forward a few years, he continues to work within the CIA. However, in the year 1981, his hunt for Perseus begins. He's essentially the leader or the boss of Russell Adler, of once again Frank Woods and Alex Mason, and the entire team tracking down Perseus and essentially overseeing what Russell Adler does to Bell. Even though he doesn't agree with a lot of it, he still greenlights it. After this, we go forward to the year 1986. This is when Jason Hudson shows up and tries to re-recruit Alex Mason after his early retirement because Frank Woods has been captured. We then know the three of them then go to Afghanistan as they are hunting down Raul Menendez, which eventually leads to the Panama invasion and this happening. Now, what we find out within Season 3 of Black Ops 6 is after his death, he actually mailed Frank Woods a tape stating that everything that we just went over, the Russian numbers sequence, Perseus, Raul Menendez, all of it can be tracked back to one thing. And that one thing is essentially Pantheon, and he knew about it before his untimely demise from Raul Menendez. So that's essentially how he's making his way back after his death, through videotapes, through information left behind. And believe it or not, there's actually information that he left behind on MK Ultra that somehow makes it all the way into Black Ops 3. But again, that's a video for a different day. However, there is one more tie-in, and that is the fourth character that has been brought in with Call of Duty Black Ops 6 Season 3. And that is this one here, going by the name of John Black Ops. The only description we have of this: a mysterious operator clad in a gray jumpsuit, sporting tactical goggles and helmet, anonymous, unassuming, and deadly. Here's the thing, there's this little thing called Operation Cherubitus, and I've talked about this many times before, but I have never made a video on it. Now, first of all, the full name of John Black Ops has been redacted. However, when we look at Operation Cherubitus, what this is after the events of Black Ops 1, after Alex Mason had been brainwashed, and after Weaver and Hudson deprogrammed him and brought him back to life as a CIA operative, someone within the CIA had this idea that he could not be trusted. But not only he could not be trusted, Frank Woods could not be trusted, Jason Hudson could not be trusted, and neither could Weaver. So they sent an assassin after him, someone within the army by the name of Jonathan. And for short, that would be John. And guess what he was going on? A Black Ops to eliminate our favorite characters. Now, I find it extremely odd that they're adding in a character by the name of John Black Ops at the exact same time that Pantheon hits a peak, and looking at Operation Cherubitus, an operation that was above the head of one of the highest operatives, Jason Hudson, at the exact same time that he was looking into Pantheon. I believe that John Black Ops may have been the Jonathan from Operation Cherubitus. But again, if this is something you'd like me to dive further into, show me by hitting that like button, letting me know down in the comments. But for now, that's just a theory.
A game theory. Thanks for watching.